again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores for me. The new mown hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the wabash, then I long for my Indiana home.
Welcome to a special edition of Pit Lane Parlay, the post Indy500 edition. My name is host Mike Jokum. With me is Jess and new co-host Matt joining, and with us for the first 15 or so minutes is Belardi Autosport driver Aaron Telitz. Aaron, how are you? How you doing? And Jess and Matt, how's everybody?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Excited to chat with you about the Indy 500.
Great. So first, before we get there, we have to talk about the Freedom 100. How do you feel about finishing fifth? I believe. Did you think you could challenge for the win there at one point? And how do you feel about after a rough start to the Indy Lights season, really kind of rebounding pretty strongly?
Yeah, we actually had some gearbox trouble in the race. I don't know if a lot of people knew about it, but I was running around out there without sixth gear at the highest speed track on the calendar.
Yeah, that might be a little difficult. It really looked like you were about to kind of catch up to that lead group there, at least until the last maybe handful of laps, and now that makes perfect sense. Jess, I'll turn it over to you, and Aaron, just to give you a little heads up, we switch it up on here and like to get to know the driver under the helmet and ask some non-racing questions, and Jess's have become legendary in the first 6 months here. So, Jess, I'll turn it over to you with that little warning.
By non-racing question, you mean the most random questions I can possibly come up with, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so here we go. My always asked question, because we can't forget this one, started a trend, got a t-shirt for it. If I gave you a 400-pound block of, we'll go with mozzarella cheese this time, what would you do with it?
A 400-pound block of mozzarella cheese. What would I do with it? Man, what would I do with it? That's a good question. I feel like that would be big enough that I could probably do some kind of cool cheese sculpture with. So I'd maybe make a cheese sculpture of my race car, and then the extra bits that I had to shave off, I would sell. That would be what I would do.
Nice. Okay.
I think that's a good idea. Matt, I'll let you ask whatever you want before I jump back in.
Yeah, I don't want to steal any of your questions, Mike, but Aaron, thanks for joining us. It's really cool to talk to you. I'm a big fan. Overall impressions of the 102nd running of the Indy 500, what stood out to you? Is there any thoughts that you'd like to share about that?
Yeah, I think the big things that stood out to me was exactly how hard it is to actually drive the new IndyCar Aero Kit. I mean, you saw legends, like Elio Castroneves just losing it on their own. Danica spun out on her own. Who else? There's some others too, but it was cool to see how difficult it was to drive. And honestly, I know there wasn't a lot of green flag passing, except for maybe Alexander Rossi, but the restarts were epic too. So I think that if they've got another year or so to rub on the Aero kit to get them to race a little bit better during green flag running, I think we're going to see some awesome races.
Yeah, and kind of like a side note, were you at the race? Like, where were you? I'm sorry, where were you sitting, or were you watching on TV somewhere?
Yeah, I was actually at the race, but I was a little bit of a wuss, and I went up into the air-conditioned media center and watched most of it from there. But then I went out to hang out with the people over on the Turn 2 mound for like the last 30 laps or so.
Sweet. We'll turn it back over to Mike.
Okay, let's see here. Do you believe, I know, your season didn't exactly start on a high note in St. Pete. Do you think that with, I believe you guys still have a decent amount of races left. I forget the number off the top of my head here. Can you still capture the, Indy Lights championship?
Yeah, I really feel like I can. In 2016, when I won the Pro Mazda championship, I was, I think, down at this point in time to Pato O'Ward, who was the championship leader then, 55 points heading into Road America weekend, and I ended up winning the championship, but I think 21 points or something like that. So that's, over or about a 70-ish point swing. So obviously, I feel like anything's still possible. And in Indy Lights, guys can have bad weekends, good weekends. Obviously, Colton's been on a hot string here. But I felt like we've been just as fast. We just haven't had a lot of luck. Has really been our problem for most of the year. We've been really fast everywhere we've gone, and just the cards haven't fallen our way yet.
Yeah, I know that crash at Barber, I think it was a Sunday morning race. You just kind of, wrong place, wrong time sort of thing in the sort of wet weather that morning. Jess, I'll let you switch gears here and see what we can come up with next.
Do you have a spirit animal? What is it and why?
Oh, do I have a spirit animal? Not really. I'm trying to think if I have one. Spirit animal, maybe a dog.
Good answer.
A dog. Yeah.
I think that's what your boss and Jay Fry both said their dog, didn't they?
Yep, Jay Fry definitely did, and I'm pretty sure Mr. Bellardi said the same thing as well.
Oh, good. All right, cool.
So you're in the same neck of the woods. I guess you and your boss are on the same page there.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Matt there. I completely forgot what I was going to ask.
No worries. So if those of you don't know, Aaron's from Wisconsin. He lives in Minnesota now, but he's from Wisconsin. And so in our neck of the woods, we love beer. And one of the big folklore beers of Wisconsin is called Spotted Cow. And so those of you who never tried it, or if you're going to Road America or ever see yourself in Wisconsin, you got to get some Spotted Cow. So my question to Aaron, and I'm going to be bold here. So not if you win the Indy 500, but when you win the Indy 500, will your second drink in Victory Lane be Spotted Cow?
Oh, I don't think that's too bold. I think it's when I win the Indy 500 too. And yeah, you know what? I think I would. That would be my second drink after milk. I'm a Wisconsin kid. I like beer, and Spotted Cow is kind of our state beer, if you will.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, as Jess knows, at least Jess and I drink a beer or have something to drink during every episode we record. So we are definitely supporters of this. And Matt, you're gonna have to get me some beer, some Spotted Cow, maybe if I can make it out to Road America in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. And I already said to Aaron on Twitter that I was going to get him to sign a bottle for me, so we got it covered.
Perfect. So real quick, just to jump in before I ask a question, to support Aaron, you can buy some merchandise is available to kind of help fund the season. We just posted the link on our Twitter page, so check it out and buy some stuff. But back to a racing question. You got to test drive Hinchcliffe's car. I think was at the Indy road course a couple months ago. What was it like to drive the Indy car? Was it a huge change, or does the Lights car really give you a good feel for how it's going to be when you make that next step up?
Yeah, you know what? The way the Indy car drives now, I've obviously never got to drive it with its aero kit before this, but it drives quite similarly to the Indy Lights car. It's a little lively. It moves around a bit. Obviously, it's got a lot more power, way more grip, tires, brakes, everything's better. But in terms of driving style, I felt like I didn't have to change a thing to drive the car well and on the limit. The only thing to get used to for me really was the extra braking capabilities.
Is there a driver that you kind of compare your style, a current driver or maybe a past driver that you compare your driving style to?
Current driver that I compare my driving style to. You know what? I honestly like to. I mean, this is a good one, obviously, but I like to kind of think of Scott Dixon when I drive, because he's kind of a guy that's always going to be in contention for race wins. You know, even if he's got a bad qualifying or whatever starting at the back, you always see him making his way to the front and consistently up there, always in a championship fight. And I feel like that's kind of what I've done with my racing career so far, too. So that's kind of someone I like to look to.
Yeah, I think he's had an okay career. Jess, I'll turn it back to you.
What is the worst movie you have ever sat through?
Worst movie I've ever sat through. Okay, so it's actually one of Jim Carrey's first movies, or one of the first movies he was in. It was called Copper Mountain, and it's a skiing movie about a ski resort in Colorado, Copper Mountain. And anyways, it's absolutely a terrible movie, but Jim Carrey still makes it fun and funny. And if you guys want to go check it out, I would highly recommend it for some laughs and some classic Jim Carrey. But it's still a terrible movie.
Yeah, I just watch it, but just know it's terrible.
Watch it, but know it's going to be awful.
No, it's bad. No, it's bad.
And just for those who are wondering, Copper Mountain has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb, and that's with nearly 2,000 votes.
That's pretty high. Way higher than I thought it'd be.
Amazon gives it a 1.9 stars.
That sounds about right. So
yeah, not too good, but I think I'm probably gonna have to watch it tomorrow. So
there you go.
I'll turn it over to you, Matt.
Yeah, so kind of running out of questions. So this will be my last question for you, Aaron. I feel like every year, right around June, I think maybe be the unofficial start of silly season. And so I don't know if you've been peeking around the corner to 2019, but where do you see yourself kind of come maybe January, February, March of 2019?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm always peeking around the corner. Obviously, I've been, I've talked to Sam, got to do the test with them. So I'm obviously looking to be in IndyCar in some capacity next year. Winning the championship this year is obviously goal number one. That's what we're focusing on, but we've got to have backup options too. And IndyCar is where I want to be. I don't come from enough funding, unfortunately, to just buy myself a ride, or really even a significant partial ride, but I'm still working on it and trying to figure out how to get myself into an IndyCar seat next year.
Hey man, I wish you the best of luck. We'll turn it over to Mike here.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with a fan question. I forgot to write down who tweeted at us, but nonetheless, I'm gonna tweak the question a little bit. What is the your next painting on the horizon that's going to be available for sale, and how many how many ridiculous, or what's the most ridiculous painting request you've gotten so far in your artistic career to help support your racing?
Yeah, copy that. My next paintings that I have on the horizon, I've got to get a couple of paintings done for Road America for a couple of people that are coming there. One of them's for a kid. He sent me a photo of his family cabin looking out over the lake in the morning, kind of mist rising off the lake. And then the other one is for someone who wants a kind of scenery photo of Road America. So I'm going to try and do a racetrack landscape of some corner at Road America. I'm not sure yet if I want to do Canada or Turn 5 or something like that.
I do
so
Canada.
Those are the next two.
Yeah, I like it. And is it true that Rossi asked you to paint his dog, and you just thought, maybe this is a little bit above my current abilities?
Yeah, he asked if I would paint his dog, and I didn't want to try and make it look absolutely terrible, and then him think that I'm a complete idiot at painting, because I've never tried to paint animals yet. So maybe when I get a little bit better, I'll get back to him and I'll do one for him.
Yeah, I like that. Jess, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, let's see here. I'm trying to think of another just off the wall one for you.
Sorry, repeat that. What was that?
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm just trying to think of another off the wall one here. So we know you like to paint. Do you have any other hidden talents that we should know about?
Any other hidden talents? I'm trying to think. What else? Hidden talent. I like to play piano, actually. I don't think a lot of people know that, but I enjoy playing piano. I used to take piano lessons. I don't anymore, so now I just kind of have 5 to 10 songs memorized that I can just kind of belt out if I'm at a bar with a piano somewhere. But yeah, I guess that's my other hidden talent.
Nice.
So, obviously Indy Lights doesn't race at every IndyCar track. If there was, one additional, current IndyCar track that you could race at, what would it be? And then, one track that you would love to either be in or just, watch a race at.
Obviously, I think this should be a kind of obvious one. I want IndyCar to go back to Long Beach. They used to race there. They don't anymore. I don't know why. It's an awesome track. Awesome race, big event. So obviously that would be the one that I would want to see to get back to.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the answer. I think your boss gave the same answer.
He did, yeah.
Matt has a better memory than me, apparently. Let me see here. We're coming up on the 15-minute mark, so we'll go with one final question. Jess or Matt, do you want to take a stab? Do you want me to go in with one final question here?
Jess, you got it? Or do you want mine to?
I've got one ready if you want me to finish it off with a good one.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, obviously the car you tested in Hinchcliffe's car got bumped in the Indy 500, and there has been plenty of chat one way or another about the thoughts of bumping an IndyCar and the future. Is it good? Is it bad? Let's hear it from your point of view. What do you think? Would it bother you to see every car entered, or do you would you be happy to have the threat of bumping held over your head when you qualify for the Indy 500, hopefully next year?
Right. I mean, obviously, as a driver, bumping kind of sucks. As Hinch and Pippa got to experience firsthand this year. But from a show standpoint or from the fan standpoint, I really think that it adds an extra layer of drama that a lot of races don't have anymore. Just because there's been years where it's just 33 cars anyways and everybody gets in, or there's 34 cars and there's one of them that you're like, that one's never going to make it anyways. So it's never a big surprise. So I think it's awesome that bumping was back and there was a couple cars that didn't make it. Obviously, it super sucks for Pippa and James, but I think it just shows that IndyCar is gaining popularity again, and team owners are more excited. There's going to be more cars, more opportunities, hopefully, more sponsors that want to get involved in a racing series that's on the up and up instead of kind of sliding backwards, as some of them seem to be doing right now. So although it sucks from a driver's standpoint, obviously it's going to put a lot more pressure on me or whoever else is trying to get in next year, because I'm hoping there'll be a lot of cars again. I still think it's good for IndyCar.
Great. Well, listen, man. All three of us really appreciate you taking out some time from your busy schedule. Good luck the rest of the way this year. Again, for those listening, go to our Twitter page. We just tweeted out a link to the merchandise store to give Aaron some support. And good luck the rest of the way, man.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. So let's continue on here with what else? The Indy 500 recap. What did you guys think of the race as a whole? I think it's, there's been a lot of discussion on both sides of the fence that it was still a good race or maybe not so good. Matt, because this is your first official episode as one of the co-hosts, we're gonna have to put you on the spot first.
I appreciate it. Thanks for bringing me on board. I really appreciate it, guys. I saw Jay Fry's comments today. Of course, I couldn't go 5 seconds into my thoughts without mentioning Jay Fry. And in Jay Fry, we trust. Get your shirts at Pit Lane Parlay or Ask Mike. He said, they've done so many tests with the new car at Indy, in traffic, in a time trial basis, qualifying format, and they never experienced heat like we saw on Sunday. And so Fry said, with what we tested the car with versus what the conditions we had on Sunday, we didn't know what to expect. And he said, was it as good as it could have been? No. But was it a bad show? Absolutely not. And I agree with what he was saying. Sure, we didn't get sitting duck type passing that we got the last 3 years where there was a pass a minute or even a pass every 5 seconds. But overall, yeah, I really enjoyed the race. I thought the restarts were excellent. Was there as much passing as there was in years past? No, but to me, that's not the big issue. So what are your thoughts, Jess?
I thought it was kind of odd. They were passing in odd places, I thought, compared to what they used to pass. Like, it used to be all in the corners, and this time it was all in the front or backstretch. So that was kind of odd. I thought that it kind of had a NASCAR feel for a little bit, kind of the whole train thing, got real stretched out. Do I think it was terrible? No. And like Jay said, obviously with the heat, that's kind of extremely unusual. So it's hard to say what it would really be like if it was a normal kind of day. But yeah, I don't think it was as terrible as some people made it out to be. We still saw a lot of passing. It was just maybe not where people were used to it. So maybe if you got your normal seats to watch the passing, it wasn't quite there. But I think it was okay.
Yeah, I think you both made some good points, and touching on what Matt said, I did read the Jay Fry article, and I appreciate his honesty. I'm not going to name names in these other racing series, but there's a lot of fluffing everything up when things are really a sinking ship. And I appreciated him going, listen, there's probably some tweaks that need to be made, and maybe we'll make them before when's the next, I guess, big ovals, Pocono in a couple months here. But that being said, it was still a pretty good race for the most part. There was plenty of intrigue, and the one thing that we ask for is the end of the race to provide some drama in some way. And Stephen Wilson and Oriol Servia and Jack Harvey were running 1, 2, 3 with 4 laps to go. Provided that. I know I was at that point standing on my seat, hoping that Wilson had some luck or some fuel that we didn't know about or that he didn't know about, but nonetheless, willpower won, and I have no problem with that. He obviously, as we saw, was insanely excited, and good on him. I love to see that sort of emotion, but overall, listen, we had 5 wide on the backstretch. Rossi passing like a madman, going from 32nd to 4th. Rahal going from 30th to 10th, and Servia going from 29th to mid pack. Connor Daly had a pretty good race. Is there anybody I'm missing that really stood out? I'm sure
we're not going to mention Jess's pick, so we'll just...
we won't. Listen, out of the 3 of us that made our Indy 500 picks, I guess it's thanks Matt for the reminder. My Indy 500 pick was the only one who finished the race, although I was pretty gutted for Tony Kanaan because he was so strong in the race, and I think he would have made a 3-way for the win with him, Carpenter, and Power, and really made it even more exciting at the end there. But as AJ Foyt said on the radio at one point during the race, if you crash trying to pass cars, I'm okay with that. So he did what the boss said. Although I'm sure we all feel for him. What was your let's stick with the general question here, Jess. Your biggest surprise in a good way, and your biggest disappointment, whether it be the race overall or maybe somebody and how they finished the race.
Let's see here. My biggest surprise, or whatever, in a good way. I'm gonna say Ed Carpenter, and I say that only because he usually has such horrible luck. And so it was nice to see him finally fighting for it. It would have been, I can't imagine what the sound would have been like from the crowd if he would have won that race. Then as far as disappointment, I'm gonna say probably, I mean, obviously TK. I won't even say TK because everybody knows that I'm gonna pick TK, but I'm also gonna say Elio because he was having a good run too. He was able to make some moves on people, and unfortunately, I think it just got away from him, just like what happened with TK. I think the track was just extremely slick, and frankly, the heat played into things as far as it went with the drivers. I'm sure they were starting to get fatigued. Yeah, I think those were my two biggest disappointments.
I'll jump in, Matt, instead of putting you on the spot next. My biggest surprise, in a good way, was seeing, Carlos Munoz jump from 21st and finish 7th. I don't think he was particularly in a contention to win, but he really just, had a solid day all around. But, again, another good one would be Stefan Wilson, like I mentioned before. Biggest disappointment to me was seeing Bourdais crash out pretty early, or not even towards the end of the race, towards the middle of the race, I think. I was really hoping the coin cars could kind of stick it to the top teams a little bit more than the end results show. But like Jess said, it was just so hot out there. I was sitting in the shade all day, and I was still completely exhausted. So I can't imagine what it was like being in a 115 degree race car for a couple hours trying to handle a race car that was very tough to drive around for a couple hours. Matt?
Yeah, two of the biggest surprises to me. One was the winner, Will Power. Other than 2015, and he had a really good run in 2010, I believe. I think he finished close to the top. It never really put up that result at Indy that made you go, wow. I know he qualified on the front row, but to see him put together 200 laps and to obviously win the race, I thought was pretty cool. Pretty much cements his legacy as a legend of the sport. And then another guy, kind of in the same boat, obviously, Simon Pagenaud, Team Penske, obviously one of the best teams, if not the best team right now, qualified on the front row too, but again, never really been able to put 200 laps together. 2015, he had it going really well, and I think he damaged his front wing. I think he was in the top 6 all day up until that point. At the 100th, and I think even last year, I think he may have had some engine issues or just overall issues, so didn't really contend. But to see him put together a solid race, and I think he finished 4th, if I remember correctly, or maybe 5th. Overall, I was really impressed with them. As far as disappointments, you could, except for Sato, you could pick anybody that crashed as a disappointment for me. Bourdais, Kanaan, Danica, Davison, a couple others. Surely I'm missing a couple. And then to throw on top of that would be Jay Howard. I think, I don't know what happened to Jay Howard, but he finished 6 laps down. So I'm assuming it was a little bit mechanical, a little bit. And he was kind of a traffic cone out there. He was getting lapped all over the place and getting passed by everybody. So with all the rumors about Hinch bumping his way back in and Jay Howard was under threat and everybody said no, including me, at the end of the day, he didn't really do a whole lot. So I'm sure he'll be back if he can get a program together. I don't think his ride is contingent on his success per se, but it was not a good showing for him.
Yeah, he looked like he had decent pace maybe for the first not long 20 or 30 laps, and then really dropped off. And how about Zach Veach recovering from the most part from most of his car being on fire, exiting pit lane? I mean, that was right in front of me, and from what I read, it looked like the shutoff valve on the fuel line was broken or didn't close all the way. So props to Zach Veach and his crew for I know he finished 23rd, 2 laps down, but I know he had to make a couple extra pit stops because some of the fuel was burning on his car. So good to see that he made it through there. And I think kind of what you were saying, Matt, and anybody who crashed was definitely a disappointment. I'm pretty bummed out for James Davison. It was, he was so off pace with whatever mechanical problem he had. I think he said his rear anti-roll bar was broken, so he couldn't make any in-car adjustments, which I can imagine being very difficult. I don't know if it was the team who said just stay out there, stay out there, stay out there, but I know when he went to the pits, none of the changes seemed to help him. But I'm surprised, he was running laps of barely over 200 miles an hour when, Sato, the lap before they collided, ran a 217. That IndyCar didn't, jump on the radio and just black flag on the pit lane because it was obvious there was something majorly wrong with that car.
Yeah, and it looked like, to me, the first flashback I had when I saw that crash was Mike Conway in 2010. Yep. When Hunter Ray ran out of fuel with 2 laps to go, and Conway was coming full speed with a full tank and climbed over the back of Hunter Ray's car in the same spot and went into the catch fencing. I think Sato was extremely lucky to stay relatively on the ground, front end lifted up a bit. May have had something to do with him hitting the brakes right beforehand or his reaction time, but I think that could have been a lot worse than what we saw. So I think both drivers were very lucky to get out of that one in healthy conditions.
Yeah, very well said. Is there anything else from the 500 that we didn't talk about before we kind of move on with the season here?
I'm good. Jesse, you got?
I mean, we didn't talk about Danica.
Yeah. I was gonna, I don't think we need to. It's
but you also didn't talk about Danica, so.
I mean, sometimes I just like to bring it up to just because I know how much of how much you've invested in the Danica fan club.
What are we is this gonna be the last episode we mention her for quite a while?
Probably not. You guys are going to torture me forever.
Yeah, Jess has a valid point there. But you both owe me a beer for Carlos Munoz finishing higher than either of your drivers. So I'll be looking for that at some point. But yeah, Danica complained about her car not doing too well, and then she crashed, and I think we can leave it at that because nobody really wants to hear about Danica. At least I don't. It is crazy to think, wrapping up race talk here. And I think I mentioned it either when Jess and I recorded this weekend or last week that I hope double points go away for the Indy 500 at some point. That Will Power jumped, from like 10th place to first just by winning the Indy 500. And I saw some people argue on social media that, well, the Indy 500 should stay double, but Sonoma shouldn't because the Indy 500 is more important than everything. I don't particularly... I mean, it is more important than any other race, but I still think it should just be, a non-double points event because, Will Power jumped up 6 spots by winning, and Rossi obviously didn't lose that much ground, and, 1, 2, and 3 in the standings are now separated just by 10 points, and we're just almost getting close to the halfway point in the season here. So I'll turn it over to either of you guys for your thoughts on that, and then we're gonna jump in with a stump the host, and I'm definitely positive I'm going to stump both of you guys.
As far as double points goes, I think we've had this conversation a couple of times before. I honestly don't really think that it's necessarily that detrimental the majority of the time. Obviously, this time with Hinch not qualifying, it was pretty detrimental to him. But typically, that would not be the case. So I don't know. I think that I think the drivers should be rewarded for finishing well in the 500 because it is the 500. As far as Sonoma goes, I don't know. I mean, I really could go either way. And honestly, I don't really care for the point system in general. So I would prefer to see a revamp of everything and not just let's take away double points and see what happens.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts that Mike has. As far as I would get rid of double points completely, and we can save the season finale discussion for another day because there's no way they should be ending at Sonoma. Hopefully, it gets switched to Gateway next year. As far as piping up the importance of the Indy 500 by making it double points, I think. Well, even back in the day, you didn't even get points for winning Indy. You just, it was kind of an exhibition race with USAC and CART with their split. To me, you shouldn't have to incentivize someone doing well at Indy by throwing a bunch of championship points at them. Between the purse that you would get and then the overall glory of either winning or doing extremely well there. Will Powers, I tweeted this today. I don't even think Will Power realizes he's in the championship lead at this point because he doesn't care. He just won the Indy 500 and he just won the biggest race of his career. It's something that people will never forget. His name will always have that attached to him, that he's an Indy 500 champion. And so for him, I don't know. I guess I could be completely off base here, but to him, I don't think he's even given a second thought to the championship at this point. He's just extremely pleased and over the moon that he just won the biggest race in North America. So to him, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, and I was about to bring this up on Twitter, and then I saw that Jess replied to it earlier, bringing back the CART point system where only the top 12 finishers score points. I think would be a great idea. So I agree.
I'd be for that. Yeah,
I definitely agree with you guys on that one. All right, Stump the Host time. We'll try to keep this in on a weekly basis, and maybe we'll keep scoring for fun. There is only one driver so far this year that has finished in the top 10 in every single race. Can you name it? Can you name him?
How many guesses do we get?
I'll give you 3 guesses each.
Robert Wickens.
Nope.
Ray Hall.
Matt got it on the first guess.
I was just trying to think because Wickens had St. Pete, where he didn't finish top 10. Newgarden had Grand Prix of Indy. Rossi had Barber. Dixon had. Where did Dixon not finish in the top 10?
Give me 1 second here, and I'll pull that up. But that is disappointing. I was hoping you wouldn't get it on your first guess.
Sorry, Pagano was St. Pete and Phoenix, maybe, and Long Beach. No, he finished in the top 10 at Phoenix. But yeah, he definitely finished last at Long Beach. I'm trying to think, obviously, like Marco, no. Kanan, no. I don't know. Ray Hall, I feel like Ray Hall's been very consistent this year. Not necessarily blistering fast or anything, but definitely consistent. So
I have, anybody who is ever looking up driver info, racing desk reference.info up. And I have, I'm on the wrong person here, 2018. So I'll look it up in a minute here. I'm sure there's a race Scott Dixon didn't finish in there because I looked up the answer earlier. But moving on, we're moving on to the hotly debated duel at Detroit. What do you guys think about the race? Should it? I think we talked about it a little bit last week, and what we think. I don't remember if it was during the episode or when we were just chatting. Do you think it should stay a double? Do you think it should stay become just one race and maybe add in another race? Do you think it's the right race for after the 500? And if not, what would you put there? Matt? I'll turn it over.
To me, Detroit is one of, if not the only legacy left from the Randy Bernard era, where he's the one who kind of spearheaded the DW12 aero kits. He introduced double headers. He had bad race control appointees, things like that. And so I feel like under Jay Fry, we've come a long ways. But the last thing that Randy Bernard has left behind for IndyCar would be the double headers. To me, it's okay. I guess the only reason I don't like them anymore is because it's a fantasy IndyCar commissioner. I have a lot of work to do on the doubleheader weekend. But kind of 2 races is pretty fun. It definitely gives you something to do on the weekend. As far as the race goes, be kind of hard to bet against Graham Rahal, but you never know. Nothing's a sure thing anymore, so he could get wrecked in the first race or the second race or both. You just don't know these days. So it'll be interesting to see some guys that need a good race after Indy versus some guys who just need to continue the upward momentum and continue to fight for that championship.
Before Jess jumps in there, Scott Dixon finished 11th at Long Beach.
There you go.
Now I will let Jess jump in.
Okay. So I'm going to stick with my basic answer from last time we discussed this. I don't necessarily think Detroit is the race to have after the 500. As far as keeping it a doubleheader, like, I'm okay with it being a doubleheader, but I don't necessarily know that they will keep it that way. As far as who's going to do well, man, that is a tough question. I feel like obviously Hinch has got to come out and he has to do well. There's no doubt in anybody's mind that he's going to come out fighting. But I think that maybe we could see somebody show some really good potential that maybe has had a quiet season, maybe like a Zach Beach, maybe a Spencer Pigot too could come out really swinging. So it's going to be an interesting weekend, I think.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right there. I think, if I read on Twitter before, and I don't know why I forgot about this, but before Randy Bernard's turn at the top chair, Texas was the race after the 500, and apparently Eddie Gossage is still a little mad at IndyCar that is not the case, judging by his tweets earlier today. So I wouldn't be against having Texas as the race after that, although I guess that is the next super speedway and not Pocono, like I said 10 minutes ago. So just correcting myself. I wouldn't be against that, but I don't know. I think a race... I'm going to say a race like Toronto would be a cool one to follow up on, just because I do really like that track. I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to know if did I accidentally tweet my fantasy IndyCar picks, or is Jess spying on me or something? Because she just named off my fantasy IndyCar picks for this weekend. So I don't know, Jess, did you hack my phone or something?
I sure did.
Okay. Well, don't copy me because I'm not doing. Well, actually, I'm beating both of you right now, but
yeah,
not by much.
I didn't really have a good Indy500 picks. As far as drivers, I think will do well. I really have a gut feeling that I think we're going to see Wickens at least on the podium one weekend, one race, and like Matt said, I don't think we can bet against Graham Rahal here. Although with the new car, who knows? But he's obviously finished top 10 in every race this year. I think he's pretty strong. Moving on, let's get to the big rumor of the week that's looking more and more like at some point it will be news, but I'm sure it probably won't end up being confirmed until after the season, is McLaren. I know we talked about it briefly over the weekend in terms of there was some McLaren to IndyCar rumors. The rumors are looking more and more likely. As we've seen now, Zach Brown will be at Detroit all weekend. Fernando Alonso's manager will be at the track all weekend. Combine that with the rumors of Alonso's ready to get out of F1 and his hilariously awesome Monaco comments that the fans should get their money back for such a boring race. It feels like the perfect storm of rumor that could definitely become truth. So what do you guys think? Do you feel more strongly about this than maybe even just a week or two ago? I feel like it's every week we hear another piece to this McLaren puzzle.
Well, I can say without a doubt that as I was reading Alonso's tweets, I might have been bouncing up and down on my couch, clapping my hands like a little girl. So I think that his tweets say a lot about the situation, and I am keeping my fingers crossed, and I'm starting to suck my breath in that it's going to happen, but I'm not quite to the point of holding my breath yet.
Yeah, and at the very least, I feel like McLaren is on their way to IndyCar, and they'll field a car. Hopefully, I mean, if Van Dorn stays in with McLaren, and for some reason, if Alonso decides to stay, the obvious choice would be Lando Norris, their up-and-coming driver that they want to field in Formula One, but for the time being, they need to find something for him to do. And yeah, obviously we saw last year, I mean, what did we end up with? Like 330, or was it like 1 million? How many people watched that, just him testing for the first time in Indy? Was it like 1 million? Or?
Yeah, it was definitely over
like
1 million.
2 million, I think.
Yeah.
Was it? Okay. So with the amount of people that watched, and then, I don't know, I mean, it's kind of a bittersweet moment this last weekend. The ratings were not very good for the Indy 500, partly because ABC's garbage. But Jenna Fryer's theory that Danica Patrick would generate more ratings than Fernando Alonso kind of died, which to me was funny, but at the same time not good because, we don't want to see bad ratings for the Indy 500. But her whole theory that Danica Patrick, and no offense to him, but Jordan or Ricky Taylor would increase the ratings instead of some driver that a 13-year-old had never heard of, would not generate a lot of ratings. So hopefully he comes back, because I do feel like that would create a lot of not only buzz amongst the racing community, but just over there in Europe, and hopefully not only Alonso coming, but a giant like McLaren. I think those would be both very good for IndyCar.
Yeah, I think you are spot on there. And speaking of the TV ratings, I completely forgot about that. I was a little disappointed to see the TV ratings. I think partially it's the ABC is no bueno. I think a lot of it has to do with, and a lot of people replied to me when I sent out some messages. More and more people are watching Hulu streaming and YouTube TV, and what's the other one? Slingbox.
I'm getting Sling. I think I'm switching to Sling in August. So
yeah,
and I know they have NBC Sports and NBC.
Yes,
but
Hulu has it. I had Hulu before I moved to my current house. So I think the rating system needs some updating, because it probably hasn't been updated since I don't know, whenever TV existed. And the other thing is, I think it might be time for the Indiana area to lift the local blackout. It'd probably help the TV numbers, just because there are some people that are going to spend the day with their family and just would like to have the race on at home. I get not everybody wants to deal with a couple 100,000 people. But nonetheless, I think McLaren would be great, and they'd instantly become huge news, and I'm sure the media centers everywhere would be overwhelmed with even more people coming in just to follow McLaren and Alonso or Lando Norris, or whoever it would be. And I'd be more than happy it was Lando Norris. He seems like a pretty damn good driver.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we're at the point where it's almost time for pitfalls, but before we do, thank you to SoundQ Audio for sponsoring another episode. And be sure to listen on wildfireradiosports.com. I have about 5 or 6 In Fry We Trust t-shirts left, and then they will never be printed again. So get them while you can. There's a few mediums and a few larges left, I think. And I think that's all I need to plug for now. Yeah, make sure to listen to Wildfire Radio Sports on Fridays, 3:15 to 4:15 Eastern. Thank you to Mr. Telitz for joining in this week. Jess or Matt, either of you guys want to start the pitfalls off?
I think Jess is ready.
Wow, that's Jess. I don't think I've ever heard Jess speak up that quick during the pitfall before.
I was ready at 9 a.m. on Sunday.
I remember when we walked by.
You can vouch for me, because I believe I smacked you in the arm. I pointed and I said, I have my pitfall.
This is fact.
So this is something that it's very similar to one that you had Was it St.
After
Pete?
Barber.
Barber. Okay, it's very similar to it, but it just really irked me even more than adults taking things from children. So this one, for those of you who do not go to the racetrack or haven't been, we'll call it behind the scenes at the racetrack, for those of you who are not aware, IndyCar has a group called the IndyCar Ministries. They do actual services on Sunday mornings for the drivers, their families, the crews, the people who are involved in racing to go so they can, have their worship time. I was blown away at Indianapolis. Again, for those of you who do not know, IndyCar Ministries is actually located in an area where the general fans can get to without having any kind of credential, which is kind of unusual. It's usually held in the garages, but this time it was out where anybody could get to it near the pagoda. And as we were walking by, they were having a service. I'm not sure if it was, their general service or their Catholic Mass. They do both. But either way, they were having a service. And I was blown away by the amount of fans standing there clamoring for an autograph from these poor men and women who were just trying to worship their God. Really? Like, you couldn't wait until they were done. You, basically formed a line waiting for these people to come out of there. Come on.
Yes, I'm going to leave my response short to Jess because obviously I talked about it after Barber, but I mean, come on, guys. I feel like, there's an ESPN segment called Come On, Man, and I feel like this is just one of those times where I need a Come On, Man sound button. Matt?
Yeah, let's see here. So right after the race, there was a tweet going around about Will Power's radio message that if you pull it up, it's not safe for work, so don't play it at work or anything or around your kids or anything like that. But he said, "Show me some respect," expletive. And people were saying, typical Will Power, he's an arrogant guy. And don't get me wrong, I and my family were, or maybe still are, well, at least my parents still have their moments with Will Power. But I've come to like Will Power, especially over the years. Back in 2010, 2011, when he was calling everybody a wanker and giving race control to double birds after the race in New Hampshire and yada, yada, yada. I always thought, what's this guy's deal? Why is he just, I mean, you could say passionate, but you could also say just, off the rails sometime. But the last couple of years, he's really grown on me, not only because he's developed so well in ovals, but just because he's seemed to really calm down and approach races a little differently, and then kind of just attempted to keep a cooler head. And so when he won at Indy, my first reaction was, I was happy for him. I was proud of him. I think he's come a long way, and he's had, a couple of vicious accidents in IndyCar. He's broken his back twice. To see him kind of get to the pinnacle of IndyCar was cool, and to see him out to not even the amount, because there wasn't too many people, but there was definitely a good contingent of people that were hating on Will Power, and you get your typical crowd that, oh, he's not an American, this isn't going to grow the sport, what's the point of an Australian winning? And those are the same people as last year. I don't know. They were hating on Takuma Sato. I thought Sato was an excellent champion. He was, just one of the most likable guys in the paddock and very humble and very easy to approach. And my favorite Will Power story is back in 2010 at Iowa when we were still not really the biggest fans of him. He was on his moped at Iowa just rolling by us, and all we were doing was just waving to him. We just said, hey, Will, good luck, and we're just waving to him. And all of a sudden he stopped on his moped, came over, and he's like, you guys want a picture? Do you want some autographs? I'm like, whoa, okay, sweet. I mean, we figured you were in a rush or something. And so I don't know. You can't. To me, that was a moment that sticks out to me. And sure, you're always going to have people that disapprove of certain things, but to the people that were hating on Will Power for something that he may have said after the race or something that he did 5 or 6 years ago, I think it's about time we realize that he has changed and that we should definitely be embracing him as not only an Indy 500 champion, but now certainly one of the best IndyCar drivers we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I think you're 100% accurate with that one. I'll wrap it up here, and I'm going to pitfall. I guess he's works for ABC. Shocking. Was that mean?
Nope.
At Chris B. Harrison tweeted Sunday evening, very sorry to hear #ABC Indianapolis fans are getting screwed over tonight and not getting the Bachelorette. And then some sort of lady emoji. Call your local affiliate and let them know how you feel. Before I get to how I feel, props to all of the comments that made fun of him. Matt Archuleta had a fantastic Scott Dixon gif put in there. Will Powers Double Birds made an appearance. Hinchcliffe saying that's adorable made an appearance. Even some other media, Laura Steele made fun of him. Tweeted a picture of him getting to ride the IndyCar two-seater a couple of years ago. I guess it was more than a couple of years ago, but at some point. But Chris Harrison, obviously he is some sort of ABC Indianapolis person. Never heard of him before this week. But so obviously he knows, as we talked about earlier in the episode, the 500 is not played live in Indianapolis. It's played at just 7 or 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Yes. So no offense to the Bachelorette, but I mean, come on, Chris. I mean, this is legitimately one of the most ridiculous tweets I have ever seen. I don't like reality TV to begin with. I mean, it took a lot for me to watch The Amazing Race, and that was only because Daly and Rossi were in it. So I'm not sure what planet he lives on that he thinks The Bachelorette should get airtime over the Indy 500. But I wish him well because, I mean, so, to his defense, he has not deleted the tweet, and he has hundreds and hundreds of comments making fun of him.
Oh yeah, they're dragging him, and even the IndyCar official account said, hey, look at all the responses in here.
Yeah,
I do believe isn't he the host of the Bachelor?
He is, and so that picture of him getting a two-seater ride, I believe, was last year with Ari.
Okay, so it was more recent.
So he knew Ari, by the way. So
yeah,
makes it that much funnier.
Yeah,
he probably put Ari up to his shenanigans on the last season, which I had to get a recap every week from certain drivers. Who was it? Was it Newgarden or one driver was like, how do people not love this stuff? Because he's like, this is the most ridiculous TV I've ever seen, but it's like it grips you. You just want to watch it more, especially with what Ari did last year.
I don't remember, but I remember multiple drivers, and I think Will Power was just like what?
It was Power, yes, it was Will Power.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what he tweeted. It's pretty much close to what you said, but I didn't watch it. I couldn't bring myself to watch it, even when I saw all the IndyCar drivers tweeting about it, like, what the heck are we watching? But I didn't even know Chris Harrison was the host of the show, so, I mean, that pretty much goes to, show how much I know about reality TV. So, shame on you, Chris Harrison. Next week we will be, the three of us will be back again, as I mentioned, by your in JFI We Trust shirts, or see what we come out with next at some point this year. With that, unless there's anything else, Jess, you can sign it off.
And guys, keep your lug nuts tight.